Hello and welcome. This is Elliot with today's edition of the Cape Cod Chronicle. It is Thursday, July 10th, and so far we're having a fairly mild summer. Here's today's news. In Chatham, stepping stones to get priority over the Old Harbor Road by Tim Wood. Plans for housing on the town-owned property at 127 Old Harbor Road are on hold. On a split vote, June 26th, the Select Board decided not to move forward with the design guidelines for housing on the land, also known as the Ellis property. Instead, the board directed town staff to concentrate on moving ahead with housing on a different property on Stepping Stones Road. In April, the board asked Housing and Sustainability Director Gloria McPherson to work with the Consulate Utah Architecture and Planning to develop a scope of work encompassing design guidelines, drawings, and evaluation criteria to send to developers to solicit proposals for housing on the Old Harbor Road property. UTIL had come up with several test fits for housing on the property, which could fall under affordable housing or attainable guidelines, depending on the response from the developers. At the June 26 meeting, McPherson said it would cost $15,000 and take about 3 months for UTIL to assemble the guidelines and other material. That's too long, said board member Shireen Davis. She said she'd rather work on advancing housing at the Stepping Stones Road property. That project is less controversial and will provide a larger bang for the buck, she said. While some members of the board oppose using Old Harbor Road property, which was gifted to the town for use as a playground in the 1970s, town meeting voted to devote the 41,000 square foot lot to housing. An old house and bar sit on the land. The house, once used as headquarters for the town's water department, has been vacant for years, and the barn is used for storage by town departments. Town meeting and also voted to accept the Stepping Stones land for housing after the Monomoy Regional School Committee declared it surplus. The land is located next to the tennis courts along the Stepping Stones Road side of Monomoy Regional Middle School. A test fit in 2022 found that the property could accommodate 8 to 10 housing units with 20 to 36 bedrooms. Select board members have said that they prefer the project to involve attainable or workforce housing available for those who earn too much to qualify for subsidized affordable housing. At the June 26 session, Davis said that rather than get bogged down in the potentially controversial details of the housing at 127 Old Harbor Road, she'd like to see the board advance the Stepping Stones project. I want a successful story for the attainable housing, she said. I really think Stepping Stones would have more of a success than 127 Old Harbor Road. We need to have an attainable project underway and supported, agreed Board Vice Chair Jeff Dykins. The board voted 3-2 not to pursue the design guidelines and other material for 127 Old Harbor Road at this time. In late 2024, the Select Board asked the Affordable Housing Trust Board to develop a draft request for proposals for the Stepping Stones Road property. According to McPherson, the trust reviewed several drafts and sent a final version to the Select Board in March, she said in an email. Officials clarify error in town manager contract. Questions raised about automobile allowance by Ryan Bray in Orleans. An error in the new contract recently approved for town manager Kim Newman has stirred questions about her compensation. At its June 4th meeting, the Select Board unanimously approved the new contract for Newman that runs from fiscal 2027 through 2031. That includes a provision awarding her $4,000 a month as an automobile allowance in lieu of normal reimbursement the town allows for the use of a personal automobile for town business, including mileage and tolls, according to the language in the contract. The Chronicle received questions from members of the public about the monthly allowance in recent weeks. Newman said last week that the amount specified in the contract was incorrect and that she will instead receive $400 a month as an automobile allowance. Newman said the error stemmed from the language that was pulled from a draft of her first contract in 2023. We've been operating for the past 2 years without issue at $400 a month, and both parties are in agreement that it's $400, she said. I think it's a Scrivener's error. In a phone call last week, Michael Herman of the Select Board further defended the allowance. Remember, she's on 24 hours a day, he said, added that the figure is competitive with what other towns offer their managers. A little side note, if I am allowed here, when I read this article last week, I did think that the $4,000 monthly, which would be $48,000 a year, was a bit excessive. The $4,800 sounds like a much more reasonable reimbursement. Anyway, back to our article. Select Board Chair Kevin Galligan said that the board and Newman agreed on the $400 monthly figure. It remains to be seen what action, if any, will be taken to correct the contract. He said last week that the board could act on an amended contract, but as long as the allowance is correct in the term sheet that Newman and the board agreed to, there may not be a need to. There's no fancy footwork here, he said. This is all above board. Whatever the town's legal counsel advises us to do procedurally, we'll do it. The Select Board last month also approved new contracts for Fire Chief Jeff Deering and Police Chief Scott McDonald. The 3 contracts were settled as part of negotiations with the town's labor unions that cover all town employees. Newman's contract also includes a $15,000 annual housing allowance. She said the allowance comes in lieu of market rate salary adjustments that the chiefs were awarded as part of their new contracts. Page 2. A spotlight on Lower Cape personalities and visionaries. Lisa Whelan Keeps on Trucking by Jenna Sammartino. Lisa Whelan runs a little blue food truck and has lived a big, beautiful life. As the proprietor of Dancing Spoons, often seen set up on Route 6A in Orleans, Whelan's love of life can almost be tasted in the food she serves. Everything I do is just not really planned, she said by way of explanation, for how a girl from Wellfleet who spent decades away from ending up feeling perfectly at home behind the window of her truck, serving up what she called seasonal comfort food. Originally from New Jersey, Whelan moved with her family to Wellfleet in 1961. I went to Wellfleet Elementary and to Nauset when it was one big school. In the late 60s, she recalled, I was cool though. I grew up fast and that was fine with me. By the time she graduated in the first class of what was then the new Nauset Regional High School, Whelan said the household dynamics had gotten very tense. It was a politically and socially charged time. She recalled how her mother's strongly conservative views were antithetical to her home beliefs. My cousin Ed was just home from Vietnam. We're all living under one roof, and it was an interesting time to get to know my cousin, Whelan recounted. After graduation and a couple of road trips with a friend to Tucson to visit some boys they met during Wellfleet summers, Whelan ended up moving to Arizona and calling it home for the next 15 years. Those were formative years. She bartended at a place called the Buckskin, where she and her wicked cowgirl co-worker hid from a Hell's Angel fight one night, and at the Stumble Inn, so popular, she said, that even Charlie Daniels had a fight to get a Sunday night gig. Whelan said she knows she was lucky, but she also tried to keep her wits about her. She carried up a rolled-up New York Times newspapers wrapped in duct tape. Those are heavy papers, she explained, and a similarly heavy sock full of quarters for self-defense if needed. She recalled a fair amount of partying, but said it was also during this time she began cooking. But not as a job, she said, just for fun. I would have orphan holidays for everyone, did Thanksgiving, Christmas dinners a lot, and I spent a lot of time with people who cooked a lot. By the 1980s, Whelan decided she needed to stop working nights and began a career in the hotel business. Very boring time, the late 80s. Bad hair, bad clothes, bad everything, she said, rolling her eyes. She thought maybe a change of scenery would do her good and took a job with a hotel in Key West. But, Whelan said, I worked for the hotel for 2 years. I hated it. I decided I'm going to clean houses for a living. But then, kind of organically, she wound up back on Cape Cod. In 1994, I came home for my dad's 70th birthday. I'm 70 now. I'm pretty much stayed here. I worked at the lighthouse in Wellfleet at, at finally JP's. Now I was really in the food thing. She knew pretty quickly that she wanted to have her own place, and over the years has run Happy Endings and at the Blue Willow in Wellfleet, the Golden Clove in Chatham, Dancing Spoons, the restaurant in Harwich. I love the restaurant business, Whelan said, but it's an extremely demanding job, financially particularly. After she closed Dancing Spoons in 2013, Whelan thought she might be done running restaurants. I just wasn't in a position to do that again. But while the restaurants came and went, Whelan said she continued cooking for others, offering her services as a caterer. It was while working for the specialty food company Sid Wainer said that she visited a client of Martha's Vineyard who happened to be starting a food truck. I thought that was so cool, she recalled, and I told her, if you're ever interested in selling, let me know. It didn't happen right away, but eventually the food truck came back across Nantucket Sound with Whelan on the ferry in the pouring rain with windshield wipers that don't work. Throw an opening in 2020 during the pandemic, and it was the perfect start to a new adventure. From the beginning, Whelan's customers have loved what she's offered up. I have a limited menu, but I never really follow the rule of 5 to 6 things. I have like 12, she laughed. But when it comes to deciding what to offer, Whelan said, I don't decide. I ask people what they want, and I charge the offering seasonally. This summer, in addition to the spot on Route 6A, Whelan plans to have a food truck at the Orleans Yacht Club on Wednesdays, and she's been busy getting a new venture off the ground, the Dream Chaser Mobile Bar, a converted horse trailer that will be available for private events. Whelan is enjoying the latest chapter in her life. I've lightened the load a little bit, she said, and my customers are great people. I'm really grateful for it. What does the future hold for Skagit Beach? Town Woods Hole Group wants to find out, by Ryan Bray. 7 years after a phased effort to better protect Nauset Beach from the impacts of erosion brought on by coastal storms, town officials are looking at options for doing the same at Skagit Beach. The town is in the early stages of exploring resiliency options for the beach with the Woods Hole Group, the same firm from the town that the town worked with to carry out the Nauset Beach Retreat project. A public meeting was held June 16th to go over the process for exploring options at Skagit and to take comments and feedback from members of the public about what they would like to see done at the beach going forward. Adam Finkel, a senior coastal scientist for Woods Hole Group, said alternatives to the beach will be prepared over the summer with an eye towards improving coastal resiliency, habitat, public safety, and public access. What we're really trying to get out of tonight's meeting is feedback from the residents and neighbors and allow you to share with us some of your key considerations or concerns for the site. Natural Resources Manager Nate Sears said that it is inevitable that a retreat effort similar to the Nauset Beach will be needed at some point in the future to protect the beach, the parking lot, and the infrastructure at Skagit. There will be parking lots removed, buildings removed, and a coastal dune rebuilt, he said. The question and the challenge is, when do you do that? It's hard to say. Finkel said Woods Hole Group will gather background data on existing site conditions and also look at the coastal processes in the area of the beach to create possible alternatives for managing the beach and the surrounding properties. A special eye will be cast on erosion patterns, Finkel said. That includes analysis of shoreline erosion trends and the impact coastal storms are having on the beach. Woods Hole Group will also look at the flood risk and try to anticipate how the tides in the area are expected to rise. The resiliency study comes as it is becoming increasingly difficult to source sand for beach renourishment. Sears said, in past years, he said the town has been able to source sand from the tidal flats at Skagit, but the Army Corps of Engineers now disallows the practice, instead requiring towns to use compatible upland source material that meets specifications set by the State Department of Environmental Protection. Winds blow beach sand into the parking lot, which Sears said town officials have save to help replenish the beach ahead of the summer season. But if this doesn't suffice, he said other sources of sand are in high demand. Sand has become an incredible commodity on Cape Cod. The sand pits are running out. Oceans resident Richard Farley said he's a daily visitor to Skagit Beach. He encouraged town officials to continue making the best use of sand that accumulates in the parking lot to help preserve and replenish the existing coastal dunes. He called the amount of sand that collects in parts of the parking lot staggering. You would not believe it, he said. Others in attendance at the June 16 meeting suggested replacing the existing running toilets at the beach with compost toilets of those utilized in the beaches in the Cape Cod National Seashore. This would allow for the existing bathroom building to be replaced to make room for more dunes, one woman said. Barry Jacobs, an abutter to the beach, worried about how existing conditions are limiting the amount of usable beach in areas at high tide. Are we going to lose the usable high tide beach there, he said. Select Board Chair Kevin Galligan noted the challenges that exist at Skagit Beach that didn't in efforts to fortify Nauset. Those include low-lying roads in the area and the need to take neighboring property owners into consideration. He also suggested that Woods Hole Group look at offshore solutions such as an artificial reef system. Others in attendance raised concern with the condition of the parking lot, which is prone to flooding during coastal storm events. What we have here is not working great, Sears said in response. It's not just what Cape Cod Bay is doing to the beach, it's what the water from the parking lot does to the beach. Finkel said a second public meeting will be held later in the summer or early fall, when the high-level concepts for management alternatives will be presented. He said an official report will be prepared later in the fall. 14th Annual Conservation Day moves to Seacamp's property by Mackenzie Blue. The Brewster Conservation Trust is bringing back its iconic conservation fair, but in a new setting this year. After years of hosting the outdoor event at Drummer Boy Park, the Trust will be moving the festivities to the Seacamp's Bay property. We're super excited for this new location, said Jeannie Yarrick, Communications and Outreach Coordinator at the Trust. The Seacamp's property offers us a lot of flexibility and a lot of opportunity for growth. Last year was the first time the Brewster Conservation Trust, BCT, had to cancel the event due to poor weather. Yarrick said that the new location this year, all activities can be accommodated, rain or shine. Sponsored by BCT, the Town of Brewster and Brewster Ponds Coalition, Brewster Conservation Day will be held this Saturday, July 12th from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. The free fair will celebrate the critical role trees play in protecting the planet, sustaining wildlife, and enriching people's lives with the theme, Trees, Superheroes of the Natural World. Community involvement is the secret sauce that makes the Brewster Conservation Day a perennial favorite, said Yarrick. At the Bay property, additional space will allow for an array of new archives, including over 40 exhibitors who are active in protecting the community's natural resources and coastal habitat. Russell Norton, an educator with the Barnstable County Cooperative Extension, specializing in horticulture and agriculture, will be the keynote speaker of the event. According to a press release, he will discuss the role of trees and forests on Cape Cod over time. Yarrick described his presentation as kind of like a historical up-to-the-present projecting into the future story about the roles of the trees and the forest on the Cape in our lifestyle, our economy, and our cultural practices. Paul Keogh, a local singer-songwriter, will perform live renditions of favorite children's tunes. The students of Washashore Music will also perform. This year, the Brewster Cultural Council is bringing a brand new activity to the fair called Creativity Zone, which will encourage children of all ages in fun, hands-on entertainment related to the theme. Alex Robert of Dot to Dot Art Workshop will offer special activities, and artist Kate Sidwell will assist children in decorating a spirited tree constructed in honor of the event. Maddie Dredd, radio host at WOMR, will MC the event with additional entertainment from Trevor the Juggler. Attendees can also expect a face painting station, interactive displays, marine wildlife rescue exhibits, sustainable landscaping practices, education, pond health and water quality features, and native plant and pollinator presentations. The Sea Camp's property is located at 3057 Main Street. For more information, visit brewsterconservationtrust.org. Chatham Railroad Museum to celebrate 65 years by Erez Ben Akiva. Say you're in the heart of Chatham and want to get to Harwich fast, but Route 28 is clogged, so is Route 137. Maybe you need to order and wait for a $30 Uber ride. If it was in the late 19th to early 20th century, there wouldn't be an issue. Not only because you didn't have a car and definitely never heard of Uber, but perhaps you had access to a stagecoach, but because you'd instead just hop on the train for 35 cents at the railroad depot in Chatham from 1887 to 1931, when the town had an operating railroad that provided service to Harwich and Boston for more than 20,000 passengers annually. Freight traffic continued for a few more years until the station's total closure in 1937. More than a decade later, a couple from Cleveland, Phyllis and Jacob Cox, purchased the depot and donated it to the town, which accepted it in 1951. On July 1, 1960, with that very building and plot of land, the Chatham Railroad Museum was established. The museum, operated by a team of volunteers and visited by about 6,000 per year, turned 65 this year. To celebrate an anniversary party will be held at the museum at 153 Depot Road from 1 to 4 p.m. on Saturday, July 12th. The anniversary and its celebration were officially proclaimed by the Chatham Select Board. The event will include railroad, arts and crafts, a scavenger hunt with prize, cornhole, model train displays, cupcakes, and more. The celebration, like the museum itself, is free. A rain date is scheduled for Saturday, July 19th. It's certainly a recognition of how long the museum has been in existence and supported by volunteers, Chatham Railroad Museum Committee co-chair Liz McCart said. Ever since Frank Love, a retired New York Central executive and the museum's inaugural director, first solicited donations and items from more than 60 railroad presidents, the museum has served as a home for railroad artifacts and train history. Inside the original depot building are exhibits of badges, timetables, lanterns, signs, photographs, models, and a lot more. Behind the museum is a restored caboose that dates from 1910. The depot building was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1978. The museum has, in fact, existed for longer than the span of history of the railroad in Chatham. There are current volunteers whose parents had previously volunteered. A similar sentiment applies to the museum's visitors. We have families whose parents are like, I came here when I was a kid. I had to bring my kids here too. And it's a legacy in that sense, McCart said. Committee co-chair Gil Sparks and his kids love the museum, and so do his grandkids. It's a history, and then the kids just love it. It's sort of a generational thing. The railroad history, a draw for many, began in earnest in 1886 when the Chatham Railroad Company, under the leadership of the Eldridge Public Library founder Marcellus Eldridge, was chartered in 1886 to build 7 miles of track to Harwich. The track and stations were leased to the Old Colony Railroad, which was later acquired by New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad train service put Chatham on the tourist map. Sparks said, in the final year, before the railroad began operating in town, 400 people came by stagecoach to Chatham for the 4th of July. In the first year of the passenger service, 1,600 people came, Sparks said. The ability to bring people to and from Chatham was a boon, and so was the enhanced capability to bring stuff in and out. Freight service in Chatham transported goods like coal, lumber, wiring, fish, and cranberries, according to Sparks. The railroad, even though it only lasted 50 years, changed the face of this place, Sparks said. Once again, Phillips Farm family tops Chatham parade. Story by Tim Wood. It's kind of hard to tell. COVID threw a wrench into things, but for almost the past decade, the Phillips Farm family's elaborate floats have won the best of trophy in the town's 4th of July parade. This year was no different. The family's float in last Friday's parade features a rookery, complete with a waterfall and eagle on top, trailed by giant puppets representing the 4 seasons, and reflecting the parade theme, the seasons of Chatham. Colorful butterflies fluttered around the float as it made its way down to Main Street. Parade judges Lucy Bates, Jo Ellen Erickson, and Amy Tagliafieri awarded the 2nd place to Chatham Municipal Airport and 3rd place to Muto Construction, whose Chatham Fog entry highlighted the town's summer season regular weather events. Charlotte and Violet Skinner won Best Youth Entry, while the comical Pogo David garnered Most Patriotic Entry. Witches on the Water were deemed funniest, with Fitzgerald Family, Giants Bugs, and Swatters earned Best Family Entry. Best Civic Entry went to the First Night Chatham, with Mahi Gold winning the Best Business Entry. The limited number of awards prompted the judges and parade committee to highlight several other outstanding entries with honorable mention, including the Grateful Mug Cafe, the Chatham Squire and Squire Mobile Northeast Portable Restrooms, and the Magner family. The parade committee will present the awards to the winners at the July 22nd Select Board meeting. Commission proposes regional approach to protecting ponds by Alan Pollock. When it comes to protecting the health of the Cape's 890 ponds and lakes, there are lots of organizations and entities with a toe in the water. The Cape Cod Commission is hoping to make a splash with a plan for a coordinated approach to freshwater protection efforts with consistent rules and resources available across town lines. Last month, the Regional Land Use Planning Agency released its final freshwater strategy, leveraging years of research, data analysis, and stakeholder engagement to fight the factors that threaten Cape Cod ponds. And experts say those threats were remaining. Nutrient pollution is the top of the list, with nitrogen and phosphorus coming to ponds through the groundwater, caused by residential septic systems and stormwater runoff. There are other pollutants like pesticides, toxic metals, chemicals like per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, that harm water and quality and can impact marine life. Algae blooms can cause toxins that harm people, pets, and wildlife, and erosion can cause a buildup of sediment that can reduce water quality. Ponds are also threatened by invasive and nuisance species, and many of these threats are also worsened by climate change, which has led to increased air and water temperatures, more intense rainstorms, and prolonged droughts. Protecting ponds has an ecological benefit as well as an economic one, with studies showing that clean ponds attract visitors and residents. An analysis of the local and regional economic impacts of ponds show that homeowners and visitors are willing to pay a premium to live or rent near clean, healthy ponds, the study found. Cape Cod's ponds and lakes are a fundamental element of the region's identity, Cape Cod Commission Executive Director Christy Sinatori said. The freshwater strategy defines key regional and impactful recommendations to ensure these water resources are prioritized and protected for future generations. The document was drafted following a series of stakeholder meetings that helped identify major concerns and potential actions that could address them. Based on sub-regional parts of the Cape's aquifer, On the Lower Cape, the meeting of the Monomoy Groundwater Lens just last June included representatives of the towns of Brewster, Harwich, Orleans, and Chatham, as well as the Harwich Conservation Trust, Orleans Pond Coalition, Great Sand Lakes Association, Hinckley's Pond Association, Pleasant Bay Alliance, Brewster Ponds Coalition, and the Watershed of South Harwich, along with the Association to Preserve Cape Cod. The Friends of Chatham Waterways has also participated in the process. The report includes 13 key recommendations, starting with the need to maintain and expand funding for a regional pond monitoring program, looking for gaps in the data while also expanding regional laboratory capacity to handle the influx of water samples. The saltwater strategy also calls for development of a regional funding program to help pay for towns' ponds and lake management projects, acknowledging that the towns have limited staff to lead those projects. The plan recommends a regional approach to improve access to state and federal grant funds, which often aren't pursued by towns because of staff time limitations. While prioritizing certain ponds for actions, the strategy calls for the development of model wetland bylaws and orders of conditions to help town conservation commissioners uniformly enforce protections around their ponds. In addition to working to limit harmful development around the ponds, the strategy recommends streamlining wetlands, permitting for helpful pond restoration projects, which are also often mired in confusing regulations and overlapping jurisdictions. Under the Commission's plan, towns would also be encouraged to include freshwater ponds in their town's water resources planning efforts, just as they do protect saltwater embayments and estuaries. Finally, the freshwater strategy recommends improving consistent communication and outreach to the pond users, fostering an appreciation and respect for Cape Cod's ponds. Today's obituaries. Robert Allen Al Sloan, 75, of Harwich, unexpectedly passed away on Saturday, June 14th. Al was born in Ottawa, Ontario, to Robert Henry Sloan and Christine Sutherland Sloan on September 17, 1949. He went to high school at Richmond High and graduated in 1969. He went on to earn a degree in 1983 from the University of Toronto. He worked on the money market desk at the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce in New York City for the vast majority of his 30-year career with the bank and maintained friendships developed there throughout retirement. Al was also referred to as Perpetual Al by his sons for his constant desire to be active. He enjoyed walking the dog with Janice, skiing with grandchildren, golfing with friends, planning the next big vacation, and meticulously detailing his Porsche. Al also meticulously looked after his family. He is survived by his loving wife and best friend, Janice Rosamond Sloan of Harwich, his son, grandchildren, and brother Bruce of Ontario. More than anything, Al liked to spend time with family and friends. All who knew him are encouraged to take great care of those they love and always make time to enjoy a good laugh. Sarah Drummond Cole peacefully passed away on June 28th, surrounded by family after a short battle with cancer. Sarah was born on March 22, 1975, in Grand Haven, Michigan, spent her formative years in Marblehead. Sarah was a proud graduate of Marblehead High School and the University of Vermont. After working at the Ritz-Carlton in Atlanta, Georgia, Sarah met the love of her life, Anthony Bernard Cole. Following Anthony's rise in his culinary career, the family moved from Naples to St. Louis to Chatham, Massachusetts, and finally settling in Vero Beach, where Anthony is executive chef at St. John's Island Club. While in Naples, Sarah gave birth to her beloved daughter, Mackenzie, a rising junior at Eckerd College, studying marine science with a focus in chemistry. Throughout the years, Sarah juggled raising her daughter and working in the human resources and engineering departments at Atlanta and Naples Ritz-Carltons, and as project manager at Chatham's Bar Inn, and as a permitting specialist for Coastal East Engineering in Orleans. Sarah's greatest joy and center of happiness was her family. She cultivated and cherished many friendships that lasted her lifetime. Sarah was always thought of others before herself, and her vibrant spirit lives on in the hearts of family and friends. In addition to her professional pursuits, Sarah loved cooking, traveling, reading, gardening, spoiling her cats, and volunteering for animal rescue services. Sarah leaves behind her husband, her mother, her sister, brother-in-law, nephew, niece, and her aunt. Jennifer Ellen Clark, September 5, 1983 to June 24, 2025. Early in the morning on June 24th, surrounded by loved ones, Jenny passed away at Cape Cod Hospital from a very swift and sudden illness. Taken away too soon, she is survived by her husband Kurt, their girls Abby and Gracie, and her family in Harwich, her parents, brothers, in addition to her nieces and nephews. Wishing they had much more time with her, Jen is also survived by her father and mother-in-law in Waddington, New York. Jen experienced great peace in her daily life and routines, which consisted of hot yoga studio, being at home with her best friend and girls, constant check-ins with families, work, naps, and Jeopardy! She was grateful for the purpose she experienced every day from her work as a certified recovery coach, which allowed her to share her own personal experiences and resiliency to help support others in her own recovery journeys. What she was able to accomplish in that role is the stuff of what heroes are made of. In line with Jenny's wishes, no formal service would be held. Instead, her family gathered for a small, private, and beautiful celebration of her life. Her family has been finding some solace knowing that she left at the absolute top of her game and is experiencing nothing but eternal serenity. For those that wish to remember or honor Jenny, we and she would simply ask that you embrace your loved ones, practice gratitude each day, and wheresoever you go, go with all your heart. If I may comment, in case you don't want to do the math here, she was sadly 41. Alan John Fletcher passed away on Easter Sunday with his family by his side. He was born March 14, 1932, in Providence. Allen was a graduate of Brown University and upon graduation served in the United States Army in the Central Intelligence Corps. When his service ended, he attended the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned his MBA. His career in market research included positions at ad agencies, major pharmaceutical companies, and his own consulting firms. He lived most of his adult life in New Jersey, but spent summers in Chatham, Massachusetts, and winters in Naples. Chatham became Allen's favorite place, where he and his wife started vacationing here in 1964. His favorite Chatham memories include his sunfish, his boat escape at Oyster River Boatyard, fudge samples at Candy Manor, Buffy's banana splits, and breakfast at Larry's PX. He loved making sailboats out of shingles and other scraps for his grandchildren, helping them find buried treasure on outer beaches and making elaborate sand castles. Allen always had a positive attitude and sense of humor, and that was one of the many reasons he was loved far and wide. He is survived by his devoted wife, Jean Fletcher, with whom he was married for almost 67 years. Allen is also survived by his son and his wife, Florida, her husband Jim, and loving grandchildren. The family will have a private ceremony this summer. Housing Trust Examining ADU Expansion Program by William Galvin. The Affordable Housing Trust Board is considering the creation of a pilot program that could increase the number of accessory dwellings units in this community. Noreen Donahue made a presentation several months ago on the concept of using existing homes in which ADUs could be developed with financial contributions from the trust. It's a way to grow affordable housing, even though it's small, without digging up a neighborhood, Donahue said during a meeting with the trust board on Monday. Donahue said there are a lot of single-family homes in town in which a single resident resides and has extra rooms available. She used her situation as an example. Donahue said she has a 1,500 square foot ranch house, and there are rooms she does not use. Many of these residents could use some additional cash, she added. The cost of conversion of a portion of the house to ADU is a major issue, she said. Donahue said if the trust were to provide funding, say $250,000 for the creation of a one-bedroom unit utilizing the additional space while retaining a primary unit for the owner, it could expand affordable housing. Donahue said that a provision could be established with the owner for an additional $50,000 to deed restrict the primary residence in the home to affordable housing in perpetuity. You could add 20 to 15 more units for short money, $1 to $1.5 million, Donahue said. AHT member Robert Spencer was interested in the concept and wanted to know the route to establish such a plan. How do we take a good idea and grow it? Inquired Spencer. I'm not an expert. Newly appointed AHT member Jeffrey Handler wanted to know whether the concept has been done elsewhere in the Commonwealth and whether there was a template for such a program. He also wanted to know how it would interact with the town on the management side and whether the units would be eligible for the state subsidized housing inventory, SHI. A lot more information needs to be gathered, he added. It's a great idea, and I like the outside-the-box thinking. But the devil is in the details, Handler said. AHT member Claudia Williams raised the question about whether a deed restriction could be placed on just a portion of a home. Community Preservation Committee member Kathy Green said that the trust should find out whether the Community Preservation Act funds could be used for such a purpose. She pointed out that much of the trust funding is provided through Community Preservation Committee. Housing Committee member Art Bowden said that every town on the Cape is doing something with ADUs, and the trust would reach out to those communities to see what programs are working. HT member Brenda Lowney said that Governor Maura Healey's Affordable Homes Act provides a lot of options for the development of ADUs. Members were interested in a pilot program, potentially beginning with 2 or 3 units a year, but agreed that a lot of questions remain. They agreed to reach out to the Town Council, KP Law, on the question of deed restrictions for a segment of the home, and to see if the law firm is aware of any similar program in place across the state. It was agreed that the town housing advocate, Brianna Paul, would also reach out to other communities on the Cape and communicate with housing advocates such as the Community Development Partnership, Housing Assistance Corporation for additional insight to any such programs. Paul Schulenberg is living the dream. A reception celebrates the artist's 25 years at the Addison Art Gallery by Ryan Bragg. Painting was never supposed to be a career for Paul Schulenberg. It just turned out that way. In the 1990s, Schulenberg, an Eastham resident, was working prolifically as a freelance illustrator for corporate clients. But at the encouragement of his wife, he started to put his fine arts degree to good use by painting on the side. Eventually, his paintings found a home at the Addison Art Gallery on South Orleans Road. My illustration work was much more concept-oriented, telling a story, he said. So it was quite different. I didn't plan on making the transition. I did it just as a little sideline, putting paintings in a gallery just for fun. But gallery owner Helen Addison started selling them immediately. Fast forward 25 years, and Schulenberg has amassed an extensive body of work as a painter, much of it having been exhibited at the gallery. On June 12th, a casual reception will be held at the gallery from 5 to 7 p.m., where visitors can meet the artist and learn more about his work and career. Who knew it would be more practical to become a fine artist, he said of his unexpected shift from illustrations into painting full-time. Schulenberg has lived on the Cape since 1993 and grew up vacationing on the peninsula with his family as a young boy. A native of New York, he grew up with an interest in cartoons and comic books, and as a kid he started drawing and sketching with a group of friends. We'd get together, and instead of playing a video game together, we'd start a cartoon drawing and pass it back and forth, he recalled. Art ran in the family. His father was a painter. He recalled growing up with oil paintings around his childhood home. His mother recognized his talents and encouraged him. She'd say, "Oh, this is a gift. You got it from your grandfather," he said. The Cape and its scenic environs have long influenced Schulenburg's work. His paintings capture various slices of Cape Cod life, from people at the beach to fishermen working and unloading their catch at a local fish piers. It's more just about the light and color and just capturing a moment, he said of his painting. The July 12th event will be held in advance of his annual exhibition at the gallery, which runs through July 22nd. On July 19th, he will host a slideshow presentation of his work and his life as an artist, which will be available on Zoom. Schulenburg has been prolific in his artistic production, a fact that revealed itself with the publication of a book highlighting his work in 2020. In preparing the book, he said he combed through thousands of pieces to identify about 100 for publication. It was crazy to put the book together and look back and think, "Oh, look at all these things I've done," he said. "But it's nice that we have this ability to save things photographically so I can realize what I've done in the past." In a press release corresponding with the July 12th event, Schulenburg said that having his painting showcased in the gallery had long been a dream. It was for a long time one he never thought would be realized. For the past 25 years, that dream has become a reality, he said. It's not always easy, but it's been rewarding and fulfilling and enabling me to do what I love to do. A Jawsome 4th in Orleans by Ryan Bray. Beneath sunshine and a cloudless blue sky, residents and visitors came out in full force for this year's 4th of July parade. The sides of Route 6A, Main Street, and Route 28 were packed with people sporting red, white, and blue. Others leaned heavily into this year's parade theme, "We're going to need a bigger float," a nod to the 50th anniversary of the classic summer blockbuster Jaws. The parade, which included everything from floats and bands to public safety, vehicle, boats, classic cars, tractors, and horses, kicked off from the Eldridge Park Way before making its way onto Route 6A. The parade continued down Main Street and onto Route 28 before ending at Nauset Regional Middle School. Harwich Farmers Market go off to a great start by William Galvin. The Farmers Market on the lawn of the Cultural Arts Municipal Building at 204 Sisson Road got off to a great start last Thursday. Thursday, July 3rd, we kicked off the season of the 204 Market Harwich Farmers Market. And oh boy, it was a great day, said Director of Cultural Affairs Karen Mawini. We had over 30 vendors, exceptional produce, honey, and great crafters, artists, and makers. With live music from Richard Hunt, we had a great start to the season. At one point, we clicked in over 200 people that walked through the market. Vendors and customers alike were pleased with the market, which is returning after a year's absence. The best part of the day was when folks would ask about recipe ideas and how to cook certain types of produce. Over at the Cape and Islands produce tent, we were even able to learn about the purple sweet potatoes. This Thursday, there will be several more farm stands added to the mix, expanding various farm fresh produce options, Mawini said. Despite crowds, a quiet 4th was reported. While anecdotal evidence indicates that this may have been one of the busiest Independence Day holiday weekends in many years, few problems were reported. It was a very successful 4th of July, said Police Chief Michael Anderson. Preparations made by several town departments going back a year contributed significantly to the lack of problems over the long weekend, Anderson said. Police, fire, public works, the town manager, and other officials participated in a tabletop exercise last year focusing on the Veterans Fields fireworks, which are held July 2nd, which helped develop security precautions and response plans for that event and the parade. Probably the largest crowd we've ever seen show up for the fireworks, but the event went smoothly, Anderson said. An emergency operations center was open for both events, as well as the July 4th fireworks at the Wequassett Inn, and technology, including body cams and drones, were useful in assisting in emergency response during the parade, he said. Large DPW vehicles also blocked several access points along the route and at the fireworks as a precaution against disruption. The fire department's drone was used to scan North Beach Island in an effort to prevent the sort of huge party that was held last July 4th. It was very, very busy on the island, Anderson reported, but not one specific large disruptive party. The 4th of July holiday is like the Super Bowl for the town's public safety departments, Anderson said, and while there were more calls and complaints than usual, increased staffing helped ensure that everything was handled smoothly. It was excellent to see everybody working together, and the community was great too. Closing south-facing beach and Lighthouse Beach in an hour early over the long weekend also appears to have been a successful strategy. Officers stationed at the beaches turned away a number of nighttime beachgoers, preventing any large parties from forming, Anderson said. No major incidents were reported elsewhere other than an SUV driving into a pool at a private home in Harwich and a motorcycle injured in a crash on Route 28, and Snow and Road, who had had to be airlifted to Boston Hospital. West Reservoir tests positive for cyanobacteria by William Galvin. The Conservation Department has issued a public health advisory for harmful algal bloom in West Reservoir. It's the second pond advisory for cyanobacteria algal blooms in the past 3 weeks. The Association Preserve Cape Cod Monitoring Program reported that cyanobacteria bloom in Bucks Pond on June 18th, and that advisory remains in place. Conservation Administrator Amy Usowski wrote in an email on July 3rd that her department examined 4 ponds and had discovered a bloom in progress at the West Reservoir. According to the advisory, the waters are unsafe for people and pets, and swimming, jet ski activity, or boating are not recommended. People should avoid swallowing the water, consuming fish from the pond, and should keep animals away from the water. People should wash off after making contact with the water. Usowski said Bucks Pond was improving, but there's still significant concentrations of algae earlier in the week. So the advisory would remain in place and additional tests would be conducted. If it goes well, by the end of the week, we can lift the advisory, Usowski wrote in the email. While in the area, Usowski said she also looked at John Joseph's Pond, and it looked fine. She also said that while examining the West Reservoir, she looked at the public beach at Sand Pond, and it was clear. As for West Reservoir, she said samples were taken on the Bell's Neck roadside, and a good concentration of the Dolichosporin bacteria was found. Thus, the advisory was issued. On Monday, Assistant Conservation Agent Lily Gooding and Natural Resources Department Director Stephanie Sykes were conducting tests, and they would continue to monitor conditions this week. Advisory signs will remain in place during that period, Gooding said. Cyanobacteria warnings are in place for many other area ponds. Visit apcc.org for an interactive map showing where warnings are in place. Brewster to launch Civics Academy by Mackenzie Blue. In an effort to engage and educate Brewster residents about local government services, departments and functions, town officials have developed a new 11-week program launching this fall. The Civics Academy will run from September 10th to November 19th and include topics centered upon the operations of town government. Staff members and volunteers will run the sessions, giving the students an inside look on how town departments are run. The inaugural 2025 Academy will have 25 available slots and will require pre-registration. Applications include 4 open-ended questions diving into the applicant's interest, community involvement, town government experience, and expectations for the program. Applications are available on the town's website. This new program is a great way to engage with our residents to help them better understand what it takes to provide services in our community and what opportunities exist for them to get involved. It said Town Manager Peter Lombardi. We're looking forward to showcasing the interesting and complicated work that goes on behind the scenes every day on behalf of our residents. Each week's attendees will have access to specific aspects of town government, including budget and finances, public works, water, recreation, council on aging, sea camps, fire department, community planning, police department, golf department, library, schools, natural resources, health, town clerk committees, and town meetings. Topics will range from the structure of municipality to operation of the town safety departments, health inspections, and volunteer opportunities, just to name a few. A full schedule of the 11-week academy is available on the town's website. Weekly sessions will take place on Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. While attendance at all classes is not mandatory, Interested parties will be encouraged to check off which classes they are available on their applications. Over the last few years, administrators have made an effort to provide residents with clear and concise communication surrounding town operations. In addition to the town website, social media alerts, the Brewster Government Television Channel, and the new monthly newsletter, the Civics Academy will be another avenue for residents to understand how decisions are made and how certain roles play a part. It will also help individuals feel more prepared heading into town meetings and special elections, officials said. Summer Shines at the Eldridge Public Library by Lauren Shea. Hello, Chatham residents and visitors. Summer is soon upon us, and the Eldridge Public Library has a vibrant lineup of adult programming designed to capture the essence of high season on Cape Cod through wildlife gardens, music, creativity, community. When we think about summer on the Cape, our thoughts naturally turn to the stunning wildlife all around us. This season, our Cape Cod Wildlife Series brings together local experts and organizations who protect and preserve our coastal ecosystem. July 14th at 1 p.m., Tales from a Cape Cod Rehab Facility. Amy Sanders from the Wild Care shares wildlife rescue stories, tips for helping animals in distress, and ways to live in harmony with our wild neighbors. July 21st at 11 a.m., Magnificent Ospreys. David Shapiro of Mass Audubon Wellfleet Wildlife Sanctuary explores the life and recovery of ospreys and how their nests are monitored across the Cape. August 4th at 2 p.m., Understanding the Eastern Coyote. Field naturalist Peter Trull shares over 3 decades of research into these misunderstood canines and how we can peacefully coexist. August 21st at 5:30 p.m., Marine Life Stranding. Carol Krill Carson from New England Coastal Wildlife Alliance explains what to do if you encounter stranded marine animals and how to support rescue efforts. August 27th at 11 a.m., Horseshoe Crab Ecology. Learn about this incredible 400-million-year-old horseshoe crab and current threats to their survival with Brooke Shellman, naturalist teacher at Mass Audubon Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. From wildlife to wildflowers, we're also thinking about sustainability closer to home, right in our own gardens. Our Resilient Roots Gardening series offers a holistic permaculture approach to cultivating resilient and biodiverse landscapes, led by Beth Hardy-Wade, Associate Director of local nonprofit Resilient Roots. Remaining dates, July 30th to 2 p.m., Your Yard Buffet shares favorite native and edible plants that thrive together at Cape Cod. August 13th, 2 p.m., Fall, Time to Think of Spring, covers composting and soil prep to give your garden a head start. Of course, summer wouldn't be complete without live music. Our Music on the Lawn series brings you free outdoor concerts from 5 to 6 p.m. on the library's front lawn. Bring a chair or blanket, enjoy the sounds. Our beloved Poetry Walk, in partnership with the Town of Chatham Conservation Foundation, returns this year to the McCoy Tree Farm located at 1575 Old Queen Anne Road. Once a working farm planted by the McCoy family, this 11-acre woodland now offers a peaceful loop through the diverse habitats, an ideal setting to experience poetry in nature. And remember, the Eldridge Public Library is here for more than just events. Whether you need help in finding your next beach read, printing and computer access, grab some last-minute seeds from the seed library, want to borrow a board game or gadget from our library of things, we're here to support your summer, however you spend it. Thank you for listening. This is Elliot at the Audible Local Ledger, and we'll be here next week.